Hi guys, Geechu64 here, and today I'm going to talk about a lot of movies coming out in 2019. I have 20 on my anticipated list, just like I did last year. And once I go through the first 10, I'll do an intermission and talk about some movies that aren't on the list, but are worth talking about for both good and bad reasons. We'll be rolling really fast through this, you guys, so I hope you guys are ready for the truth.
Oh, geek.
True. 64.
Geek. Truth.
Geek.
True. 64. Oh, shit.
First up is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which releases on July 26th. This is a Tarantino movie based on the Manson murders. I love many of Tarantino's movies, but I'm not a fan of all of them. For me, they're kind of hit or miss, but they're always worth watching and checking out. Plus Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt are in this, and Margot Robbie. So yeah, you have to check it out just for Margot Robbie. Ford versus Ferrari releases on June 28th. This is written and directed by James Mangold, who wrote and directed Logan, which was one of the best X-Men movies of all time. He has a very interesting style that I really like. This is a biographical film about cars, so what's not to like? It stars Christian Bale, Matt Damon, and Jon Bernthal, so you have Batman, Jason Bourne, and the Punisher in one film. Can't wait for the trailer. Captain Marvel releases on March 8th. I'm barely putting this on a list because it's just a Marvel film, so I have to put it on the list because the thing is I'm not really hyped for this at all, mostly due to the subpar trailers and what I view as a horrible miscast in Brie Larson. I wish they would have had Emily Blunt personally. I've done a couple videos on how Captain Marvel is killing hype for me. Check those out if you want a bit more detail on my thoughts over the last few months. So I was a fan of the character back in the early 2000s when she was Miss Marvel, but the character has changed drastically over the last 5 to 6 years, I guess, with Marvel trying to shoehorn the character into a Wonder Woman-esque type role. Again, I go into more detail with this character in other videos. I'm not going to keep going on with this. I am hoping that Captain Marvel proves me wrong, just like Aquaman did last month, but I just don't think it will. Please surprise me. Anyway, I'm still looking forward to this because it's a Marvel movie and it has a blockbuster cameo. New Mutants releases on August 2nd. This movie was on my anticipated list from last year as an honorable mention, and I'm going to mention it again this year. This was supposed to be out in 2018 and was pushed back due to Disney's purchase of Fox. And for reshoots, apparently the reshoots were to make the movie more frightening. This is a new take on the superhero genre, delving more into the horror aspect. I'm a huge X-Men fan, and I'm familiar with all the characters that many people might not be. I'm really looking forward to seeing them on the big screen. Not too sure horror is the way to go. I'm not a big horror fan personally, but good on them for taking a chance. Dumbo, March 29th, Aladdin, May 34th, and Lion King, July 19th. Yes, I'm going to lump all of these live-action adaptation together for this list. I was actually more excited about these when they were first announced. Aladdin and Lion King are two of my favorite Disney animated movies. They fall right into the time period of when I was a kid, so that's not really a surprise. The idea of a live action version I found interesting. The problem is that no one can live up to Robin Williams as the genie. Then the image of Will Smith came out as the genie, and I lost some interest. I'm not gonna lie, he kind of looked like Kazam and Goro. I still want to see it out of curiosity, but I'm not super hyped on it. The Lion King is called live action, but all of it is CGI, so it's more like a photorealistic take. James Earl Jones is back as Mufasa, which is awesome. But again, I'm just not that hyped about it. I can see these movies. I have the animated movies on Blu-ray, and I can put them in the original movies. The thing is, with the Jungle Book, when Disney did the Jungle Book live action adaptation, it was done right because it changed a good amount of the original story around while maintaining the same feel of the Jungle Book. However, Beauty and the Beast was basically just a straight up adaptation without the magic of the original animated movie. Dumbo, on the other hand, I'm pretty sure it'll have a different feel than the animated movie because Tim Burton's involved and he has a very distinct style. But I'm still just not all that hyped about him. I'm interested in seeing him. My thoughts on these live action adaptations are that they were a neat idea, but I really just see them as a cash grab on Disney's past. Maybe if they were spread out a bit more and not all coming out the same year, I might feel a little bit differently, but that is not the timeline that we live in. The Lego Movie, the second part, releases on February 8th, right around the corner. The first Lego movie was a surprise hit, not just to me, but for a lot of people. And I liked Lego Batman as well. I would hate to say that Lego movies have lost steam after just a couple movies, but I kind of feel that way after seeing the trailer. Again, this was a movie I was looking forward to before the trailer was released. The trailer wasn't bad. It was just missing some of the magic that made the first one so good. I am looking forward to seeing what they do with it anyway. Kingsman, the great game, releases November 14th. This is meant to be a prequel to the first two movies, taking place in the early 1900s and detailing the formation of the agency. I love the first Kingsman. I thought it was smart, funny, and self-aware of itself. It had great action and charisma to it. However, the second film, The Golden Circle, it had none of that stuff, and it went in a direction that I pretty much hated. I figured I'd be done with the franchise after that, but I like the premise of this movie, and since it isn't tied to the main story in any significant way, it's almost like a mulligan for the franchise for me. Full casting hasn't been announced yet. There's a few people that have been announced. Honestly, I'd be surprised if this one makes it out by the end of the year as projected. But if it does, it might be worth checking out in 2019. MIB International releases June 14th. This is the fourth movie in the Men in Black franchise. The first movie was great. The second one rode on its coattails a bit too much for me, but I still enjoyed it. After a 10-year gap, the third installment came out. It didn't have the same feel that the franchise once had. So they're trying to use this universe they already have established, but follow completely new characters. So we're going to get the Thor Ragnarok duo of Agent H and Agent M, Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson. They're trying to breathe life into this mostly dead franchise, and I'm not so sure that they can do it. The trailer didn't really do much to change my opinion. Maybe it'll be a fun movie, but what I want out of Men in Black is something new. Just commit to just do a reboot of the franchise and recreate the Men in Black franchise as a whole. I think that would have been a much better approach. Either way, I do want to check this out, if nothing else, to see what they do with it. And before we get to the top 10, I'm going to talk about a few other movies that, for good or bad, I wanted to mention. First is The Kid. This is a Western biographical drama about Billy the Kid. Billy is played by Dane DeHaan, which hasn't had the best of success lately at the box office. See Valerian and Amazing Spider-Man 2. But the film is directed by Vincent D'Onofrio, who most recently played the Kingpin in the Daredevil series, which was awesome and cut short. And that's a whole side topic that I just don't want to talk about right now. However, The Kid does star Ethan Hawke, Adam Baldwin, and Chris Pratt. My man Chris Pratt is in this. I'm interested in it simply because of the amazing cast. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. So this is a movie about Mr. Rogers, as you can guess from the title. There was an amazing documentary called Mr. Rogers last year called Won't You Be My Neighbor? I loved it and highly recommend it. If you like documentaries, it's a great one. As far as the upcoming film, I am interested in seeing a biographical movie. This does star Tom Hanks as Mr. Fred Rogers. Hanks is a great actor, so let's see what happens. Frozen 2. I'm not really the demographic that this is aiming for, so I don't have much to say other than it is coming out, and regardless of your feelings about it, you should let it go. Jumanji 3. So I grew up with the original Jumanji with Robin Williams, and other than the dated CGI, I think the movie holds up pretty well. I still enjoy watching it. When the sequel came out with The Rock, Kevin Hart, Jack Black, and Karen Gillan, I wasn't too hyped on it. I didn't like the idea of changing the board game to a retro game console. I thought it was kind of dumb. But I did check out the movie on Blu-ray. I actually own it on 4K. I found it surprisingly fun. I like all the people involved in the project, and their charisma is what really carried the film. I don't really see the point in a third movie, but I'm not that surprised that the studio wants to try and build a franchise around this with how well the previous one did in theaters. This is projected to come out in December. I'd be surprised if it hits that release date, though. Hellboy. So I'm not a huge Hellboy fan, the comics or the movies. However, I did enjoy the first two films, mainly for the unique style that Del Toro brought to those movies. And I liked Ron Perlman as Hellboy. But Ron Perlman is out, and we are getting a reboot without anyone from the first two films. I wasn't interested before, and the trailer doesn't do anything to change my mind, but I'm sure someone is looking forward to this one, and you never know, maybe it'll surprise people. Joker or The Joker. This Joker prequel stars Joaquin Phoenix, and it's meant to tell the origins of the character. It looks like it's meant to be a character piece more than anything else, which is interesting, I guess, but I'm not interested in it, really. I don't find the early images very engaging, And I'm of the mind that Heath Ledger was such a great Joker that I'm still not too keen on seeing him played by someone else, at least not in the capacity that he has been. I don't want to see Scarface Joker and Suicide Squad, and I don't want to see a character origin without Batman. And apparently Thomas Wayne is going to be made out to be some like rich a-hole in this movie because you can't have money and be a nice guy anymore, I guess. If we are going to get a new Joker, it needs to be in a Batman movie, and it needs to be with other villains who he can play off of. That's actually something that we haven't seen before and is way more interesting than a character piece to me. But oh well, to each his own. I'll check out the movie, but again, I'm not that interested in it. Please, just go away. Terminator is dead. Please bury it. Terminator 3 was nowhere near as good as the first two. Salvation was a bore. Genesis was a failure. The only thing to show some promise was the TV show Sarah Connor Chronicles with Cersei Lannister, and even that was ran into the ground. And just look at the first images released from this. This is boring on a plate. This is boring is an understatement for this. You know what? Buddy the Elf sums up my reaction to this. Also Glass. I put Glass on here, but by the time I get this video up, I think it'll already be out in theaters. So just know that I am looking forward to it. Now let's go ahead and move on to my top 10. How to Train Your Dragon 3: The Hidden World releases February 22nd, and that title is a mouthful. This is the conclusion to the trilogy, and the trailer looks to be living up to the progressively darker tones set down by the sequel and the first film. I love how the franchise has aged itself along with its audience in a similar way to what the Harry Potter movies did. Nothing more to say about this other than I'm really looking forward to seeing how this trilogy ends. Star Wars Episode 9 releases December 20th. It doesn't have a title. It's just Episode 9. This should be at the top of my list because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. However, I'm only cautiously optimistic about this one. The Last Jedi really ruined this trilogy, in my opinion, and I don't see how Abrams can come back from the wrecking ball that was director Rian Johnson. This trilogy had no plan to it, and that is now apparent. Regardless if you like The Last Jedi or you hated The Last Jedi, there is no plan to this trilogy, and that's the main problem with this thing. And the chasm between what the fans want and what we are being given is so wide, it's hard to believe that anything Abrams does with Episode 9 can bring the fans back to Star Wars in the way that they were 5 years ago during the initial Disney acquisition. So, I'm an Abrams fan. I thought The Force Awakens had potential for the trilogy, and I liked his take on Star Trek back in 2009. I will watch Episode 9 because I'm a Star Wars fan, but if it turns out to be anything like The Last Jedi, I will only see it once and then try my best to ignore its existence, turning instead to the expanded universe before the Disney Empire. So, Zombieland 2. I love the first Zombieland released back in 2009. It came out when zombies were really popular, and it took a comedic approach to the post-apocalyptic horror zombie movie. Current interest in zombies is pretty low at the moment in comparison to what it was. People are leaving The Walking Dead in droves, and we haven't seen a zombie movie in a while. Now is the perfect time to bring back Zombieland. Looks like the entire cast is coming along, with even Bill Murray as himself is coming back. I don't understand how, but hey, you know, zombies, right? I really hope they use the opportunity to poke fun of the ridiculous repetitiveness of The Walking Dead, which is one of the reasons I stopped watching it. Zombieland isn't a parody. It's just a comedic take. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do here in 2019. Toy Story 4 releases June 21st. And I love the Toy Story films. Those three movies are among the best trilogies in cinema, in my opinion, among my favorite, right up there with Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, Back to the Future. It's right there. They're definitely the best animated. And Toy Story 3 wrapped up that story so perfectly. I like how they've done some short movies and stories following the main story, but I never wanted to see a fourth installment as much as I love those movies. I feel like a fourth installment just won't live up to those first three. Pixar has built their brand on creativity, and taking us back for a fourth Toy Story movie just feels unnecessary and lazy. Don't get me wrong, I will definitely be seeing this one. It's just not very high on my list because I'm not really anticipating it beyond interest in revisiting my favorite characters. I love those characters. Pixar used to be the studio of innovation, and there has been too much focus on sequels. I miss the innovative days of Toy Story, Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, Ratatouille. I hope the studio can find its way back to its heyday. But I'm going to check out Toy Story 4. There's no way I'm going to miss that. John Wick 3 releases May 17th, and this will apparently wrap up the John Wick story, but if it makes money, I'd be surprised if we did not get a part 4, assuming he makes it out of part 3. John Wick was a surprise hit in 2014. I love that movie. It threw us into a world of underground assassins and a major badass played by Keanu Reeves. I wasn't as big a fan of the second film, but I did really enjoy it, and it built on the world from the first movie. In Chapter 3, we will see John Wick on the run from the Continental, which is this monolithic presence in the underground world of assassins. So there's literally nowhere to hide with everyone after John Wick. I'm really interested in seeing where this movie will take the character. Somehow, I'm thinking it is to the grave. Dark Phoenix is now releasing June 7th. I'm talking about this one again this year. This was high on my list of anticipated movies last year of 2018, which is when this movie was supposed to come out. See my clip.
X-Men Dark Phoenix. The entire X-Men franchise has been a Ferris wheel of incredible highs followed by weird experiments and new ways to fail. Dark Phoenix will be the 20th Century Fox last stab at the core X-Men franchise before Disney eats the company alive.
I was excited to see this simply based on the promotional images of Sophie Turner and the idea of maybe getting a Phoenix story done right. However, since that clip from last year on my anticipated list, Disney's purchase of Fox has really caused delays in this movie's release. And when the trailer finally dropped a few months back, my interest has died down quite a bit. The X-Men are my favorite team of superheroes and have been since I grew up with the comics and the cartoon from the 90s. I love X2 and Days of Future Past. Great movies, in my opinion. Great comic book movies. Dark Phoenix, it'll wrap up the franchise, and I have a feeling it'll go out with a whimper based on the trailer and the lack of marketing due to the acquisition. Phoenix is powerful, but not more powerful than the mouse. But I'm still looking forward to how this universe wraps itself up. Shazam releases April 5th. Shazam is the real Captain Marvel movie that I'm excited about. For those that don't know, Shazam was rebranded over the last few decades as Shazam. But when I was younger, he was still called Captain Marvel. There is a real detailed past for this character I'm not going to get into in this video because I don't have the time, but I'm really looking forward to Shazam for several reasons, one of which is that I love Zachary Levi. I'm a big fan of his show Chuck, which ran for 5 seasons, and I got a chance to meet him at a con about 2 years ago. We talked about our time at Blockbuster for a bit. We both worked there, just fun fact. He's a really cool guy, and I'm glad to support his movie. But also, I really think his personality fits what they're going for. The trailer for this reminded me of the movie Big with Tom Hanks, which is one of my favorite 80s movies. And with Aquaman being a surprise hit, I have renewed faith in DC, hoping DC continues down that path that they're on and gives us some more DC films without the dark tones, bad writing, and subpar CGI that we have been getting. Just one thing left to say. Shazam! Godzilla King of Monsters releases May 31st. I was a fan of the Godzilla movie from 2014. A lot of people had problems with how little Godzilla was actually in it, and I completely understand that. But overall, I like how he was introduced in that movie. I viewed it as a setup for a lot of potential going forward. And it took about 5 years, but we're finally getting that sequel with King of Monsters. Now, I'm a big fan of Godzilla. I grew up watching the old Godzilla movies and still own many of them on VHS. I have to go to a museum to borrow the player to watch them because mine's dead, so, you know, hey, they're bricks now. But I'm really interested in King of Monsters, which is throwing so many iconic monsters at the screen. You got Rodan, you got Mothra, you got King Ghidorah. They're all here. Of course, Mothra was a protector in the original movies, and I hope that continues in this movie. There's also some great talent with Millie Bobby Brown and Kyle Chandler. I do wish that Aaron Johnson's character from the first movie returned in order to tie that first movie into this one a bit better. His character, I think, would be a good one to segue and bring those things together. And of course, I'll miss Bryan Cranston, who was in the original Godzilla movie, Walter White. But the trailer for this was just amazing and got me even more hyped to see this than I already was, and it moved it way up on my list. Spider-Man Far From Home releases July 5th. I really love Spider-Man, but the quality of his films have been a mixed bag over the years, with the Amazing Spider-Man films having scenes like this. and Spider-Man 3 having scenes like this. I don't think Sony's a good studio, and I've made no secret about that. Check out my Venom review if you really want to know how I feel about Sony. But we all locked out with Spider-Man Homecoming, in which we got the best screen adaptation of a Spider-Man villain since Dr. Octopus, with Michael Keaton as the Vulture. Marvel is really fleshing out these villains here in Phase 3. Honestly, this whole thing was mostly due to Sony playing ball with Marvel and letting them take the reins. That's what gave us a good Spider-Man movie, finally, which hadn't happened since Spider-Man 2. And Jake Gyllenhaal is going to be the villain Mysterio. I'm really interested in what they do with the fishbowl head and what Gyllenhaal does with the role, because, man, have you seen him in Nightcrawler? I'm really interested to see what happens with this. No word on if Tony Stark, Iron Man, is going to be in this. No doubt that's to keep the events of Endgame under wraps, just in case Downey does not return as the title character Iron Man. Now on to my number one most anticipated movie, which is, of course, Avengers Endgame, which releases April 26th. Obviously, this was going to be number one. Where else was it going to be? Infinity War lived up to the hype by giving us massive battles, massive stakes, and the best superhero movie of all time with Thanos. Avengers Endgame will be the finale, the movie that'll wrap up this amazing run of films that redefined what a franchise could be. I expect that Endgame will be more focused on our original Avengers team from the first movie. I really hope it's more of a character-focused movie in the aftermath of the massive loss in Infinity War. So it might not have as grand scale with the battles, but I really want a character-focused movie because this appears to be the final movie for Captain America and probably Iron Man, maybe more. I'm not really sure yet. And I want it to focus on the characters that this universe was built on. While the universe will continue on with Spider-Man and Black Panther and more characters, without those core characters, I don't think the universe will have the same level of interest that it has had in the past. I hope Endgame is a great send-off. Thanks for joining me, guys. That was my list. What do you guys think? What are you anticipating in 2019? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe, or don't. I'm not a beggar. I'm Geechu64, and I'll always tell you the truth.